you know, people are coming to us trying to get a building permit, and they don't even know in their mind, they haven't created what they want to build. What house do you want? Well, I want the house back that burned. Okay, fair enough. But it won't be the same because it just won't. And so we need to know how big is your footprint, and where do you want it on your lot, and where is the front, and where is the rear, and all these things that are like hard, like it's a question that has to be answered. But if you haven't put your mind to what you're going to build at some level, you're not going to be able to answer it. And so this is sort of where I'm going high level. Like eventually you're going to get a building permit, and that's a complex process that we'll get into a little later, but not in any great detail. So these are sort of some straightforward questions you have to decide. Are you going to stick, you know what stick frame, everybody knows what stick frame? Yeah, okay. So you're going to stick frame it, or are you going to do some type of modular or another type of like unconventional building construction type? Then there's a lot of those. So you have to make those sort of decisions early on as well. So, and that bottom thing that we are here to help, that is an absolute truism. I want it on every slide. I want people to remember that, because there's a lot of questions and the answers change as you, it's an iterative process. So the answer you get today, you might change some little thing and that'll change the answer when you made that little change. So keep phoning, keep calling. There's 2 of us now that are regularly doing this. My colleague Lynn Berlin and myself, we're monitoring the building at Lytton email address now constantly. And so if you have a question, we have phone numbers, they're all on the website too. But, and the phone's great, because my main reason for the email address is to say to you, when do you want to talk? Because I don't want a whole long line. It's way more faster iterations if we're talking. So please use that. Please come and see us. So when you're going to build, you've decided you're going to build the stick frame. Are you going to hire a contractor, or are you going to be the contractor? And there's a whole bunch of different iterations of whether you want to be the contractor. You don't want to be the overall that hires the subtrades, or do you want to do it all yourself, or any mix of that, or are you just going to have a contractor? Like I think you mentioned, you're going to have a contractor, right? One of you said that. And so if you have a contractor that's a full contract, like it's basically you walk up at the end of the job with your house key and you walk in, that person will look after all these questions, and he'll do the iteration with you, and probably in a more effective way, because he'll put dollar signs in your decisions, right? It'll help you understand where you're going with your concept. So it makes there's a lot of things that you have to do if you're going to be the contractor. So I guess there's not too many people in the room considering that at this point. But there's Homeowner Protection Office, there's WorkSafe BC, there's all the other permitting. We'll hear a little bit about Tech Safety BC, electrical stuff, and other things that are important. So the building plans are, again, your imagination, but the shape of your lot and the shape of your house on it are really important, because there's, first of all, there's land use. There's a setback. You have to be so far from the front, so far from the rear, so far from the sides, and it's different if there's a road beside you, and you can choose a different front, but as soon as you choose a front, it immediately means the one opposite that is the rear, and so it changes the, you know, you may have a rectangular house and you end up with a square one because of those decisions. And the closer you get to the property line, the more intense the building demands are for fire protection from your house to the neighbor. So the windows get smaller, the walls have to have fire ratings, and all these things they'll change. You could end up with needing no fire rating and having big windows, and you could go right down to having a 1-hour fire rating and no windows. So it depends on how close you are to the property line. And then in Lytton, there's another issue with that, which is you have to protect your house from the outside fires, which is structural fire protection related to the wildfire problems. And those things change too. But for the most part, on your first decision-making process, it's how close you're going to be to your property line. That's the key piece. The envelope fire protection issue is very much the same no matter where you are. So, and that's the difference in Lytton. Everywhere else, fire protection is you're protecting your neighbor from your inside fire going out. In Lytton, it's both ways. And that's a significant difference. And if you're going to like a modular builder or any kind of industrial building process, before you commit to a contract, make sure that person, that company has talked to us, because they build thousands of these houses, and if they're going to put one in Lytton, it'll be different. And they need to know that. And we're getting calls, not a lot yet, but we get calls about this where the contractor thinks he's got it all cased because he's been building houses for years, or thousands of houses, whatever way, and he doesn't because it's Lytton. And so it's just a shock. And so don't sign on the bottom line until you know they've talked to us. Like, you don't have to come with, you can come, you can talk to us too, that's no problem. But I want to know, you need to know that that person understands what we're asking for in Lytton. And there's other things you need here. The BCLS is a survey because all the properties are so tight. The houses, whatever setback you make, it's going to have to be a survey certificate. And so you might as well engage that person right at the beginning and get them to do the site plan, because they're going to be there at the end anyway. And to save you money on that count, we're not requiring you get your property pins pinned. So they know where they are, and they can site your house from what they know. But if you want them to pound a pin in, they charge more. We don't need a pin. There's enough pins around Lytton already to figure it out. So we're save you $1 there, but you do need them at that level. So if they want to put pins in and you want them, by all means. But if you don't want them, you don't have to have them. We're not asking for that.
Was this done survey recently?
Parts of it, but
Parts of it, okay.
yeah. And I don't know if it's done yet, but what the objective was during that survey, that there would be a pin or two in every block, so that your surveyor on your lot didn't have to go 3 blocks over there and 2 down and then work his way back to your corner pin, right? We didn't want to have that, and we were in there surveying anyway, so that's what we asked for. I haven't seen the outcomes, but that was the objective.
Is all the old infrastructure known and knowledgeable to the people of Lytton, like water mains coming up from the CN Railway, up through West Lane, up to the Total Motel, the water lanes up in Snob Hill? Are they all known to our records, or have we any records? Water that was put in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, okay?
Okay, so I don't know, but my experience overall is don't trust them to know. So do your research. Come to us, there will be people around that may know, like, that have been around for a while, but I wouldn't trust the records. And plus, a lot of our records went up in smoke, so
you can't build 18 feet from a water line, so you can't build on top of a water line if it's city owned, okay?
Well, if it's city owned, it should have an easement on the property. So
I know if it doesn't matter. Well,
yeah, okay. Anyway, so anything with an easement, if you got a lot with an easement, yeah, okay, we'll figure that one out. We'll know that one. But what did I do? Am I back? Okay. So eventually you go through all this. You'll need a building permit. We've got cloud permit online. It's electronic permit application process, and there's a ton of information on the website, checklists, and there's information about what you need. You need a stated title. There's a link at that point that links you over so you can get to the place where you can get your stated title, for instance. And the cloud permit is totally electronic. You enter everything, and it's got checklists all the way through and stop points where you can't get to the next one because you haven't got this done, right? So it helps you, leads you through it. But because everybody's all over the place, it's just about the best approach we could come up with to make it easy for everybody. And it's not easy because it's highly technical, But it's doable, and a good dollop of patience and whatever else you need to get through it will probably help. So I don't know, maybe I should pass this on?
So far we're not overlapping, so it's good.
Okay, all right, then
We've
just,
not practiced this
yeah.
before.
So may I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
So some people have a builder already that's going to be building their home.
Right.
And they will be picking up the permits, right? And that's from what I'm talking about.
Yeah, there's an authorization that they'll come to you and they'll say, there's an owner authorization, a Village of Lytton form, and you sign it and say, I am the owner, and that the state of title will go with that to say, yeah, you are. And then you authorize so-and-so for the purposes of getting and going through a building permit process, that you authorize them to represent you with us.
And that form is available?
Yeah, it's on the website, it's in the building bylaw, and there's a link to it on the website. But it's in the building bylaw too, so if something goes wrong, it's always there, yeah.
Is there any overarching design principles that are going to be in place as well? Is there any overarching principles that to do with climate change and stuff like that? For example,
Well,
bonus points if you put in solar. Do you put in rainwater harvesting? Is there some bonus points for that?
there'll be some people in here talking about bonus money for going to a higher level of efficiency to net zero homes. That's accessible cash to.
It's encouraged through cash.
Right, that's one piece. The other piece is it's a bit new, but it's been around. It's called the STEP code, and it's a requirement to have energy efficiency measures in your house. And Lytton was ahead of the game. They made it a STEP code 3 community a while ago. But now the province has made everybody has to be STEP 3, and you need an energy advisor. And so that's another expert that you have to hire in, and they will help through the design process. Then they'll help during the construction process to make sure that it's tightened up properly. And at the end of it, they'll do a test to make sure that there's no leakage.
If you were beyond step 5, had a rainwater harvesting system, had a solar panels throughout, had a specialized sewage treatment system in your property, or is it all going into one system? What kind of bonus or opportunity would there be?
You didn't hit a nail on the head there on those things. No, there's no bonusing for that.
Yeah. Okay.
So the best incentive that we've talked about today is going up to net zero.
When does the new building code come in? Is it 2030 for this part of BC beyond? Is there a new building code enters into the year 2030?
No, there's going to be a new one next year.
Is it next year?
They said this year, but it never comes to pass, so next year.
I thought it was 20. Okay.
It's about every 5 years there's a new building code.
The change.
Yeah, because the BC building code is based on the national building code, and they have 5-year cycles. So you get a new national building code every 5 years. It doesn't apply in BC. It gets modified into the BC code. So sometimes you get a new building code and then nationally, and then it may be 7 years out before BC actually gets it all in place. But
So R40 is considered a energy efficient home?
with a whole bunch of other things as well, yes.
Draft proof.
Yeah, yeah. I did it again, okay. Okay, this gets down to what I was talking about earlier, so I'll just skip over it. But it's very critical because the lots are so small, and you want to maximize it. And there's limits on the. What's that? Sorry. No. Yeah, the 35% lot coverage is a big issue, but Lytton's put in some ways to modify some of these rules. These are basically zoning rules, and there's a way to get variances. And it's not a cumbersome approach. It's going to be quite smooth and not, it's overstating it to say simple, but it's doable. And So don't be afraid of that. If you need a variance, if you think I got to have this the way I had it or I want it, it's not a cumbersome process, and it won't slow down your building permit process, because we'll move along with all the other stuff while this is waiting to be churned over. But so anyway, so don't despair. If you don't just look at that like that's the etched in stone. It's the fact today, but there's variance processes. So we've had lots of questions all the way through, so maybe I'll just leave it at that. I think I missed a slide with, does everybody know the difference between a modular home, a mobile home, and a factory-built, like, components?
Panelized construction?
Panelized is the factory-built components, right. Modular is the home comes out of the plant in pieces, but they're complete. They're all gyprocked and everything, and so you may get 2 chunks going down the road. But modular also means that it's built to the National Building Code. And the BC Building Code says if you build to this Canadian standard A277 in a plant, it's an acceptable BC Building Code compliance tool. And so that's a modular. The other one is a mobile home. It could be single or double wide, but a mobile home. They're not modular. They're built to a totally different standard, and they cannot meet the requirements in the Lytton building bylaw for the structural fire protection. So if you're looking at a mobile home, and I'll throw these numbers out, but a Z240 is a mobile home. A277 is modular. If it's a Z240, it won't be acceptable in Lytton. And there's no variation on that. It's just, it won't. But almost any other type of construction is doable. So
a modular home I can see on display at Walmart at Chilliwack for 240 grand, 1,000 square feet. That is, sorry.
Your own tool.
Okay, is ready to be dropped in Lytton. It is,
no.
No.
Because it's built for all the rest of BC. It's not built for Lytton. So that gets back to the contract thing. So if you're in a modular home plant or a display area or Home Depot or whatever, and you're looking at them, don't sign a thing, because those homes will not meet the structural fire protection. But they can.
Yeah,
If you want one and you're talking to the salesman and you tell him it's for there, he'll tell you, we'll have to rework our plant material or process, but we can do it. And I've talked to a couple of modular home manufacturers, and they said they can do it, and they would be interested. So it's possible, but it's special. So